All right, you ready for this? Today we're tackling some pretty mind-bending stuff.
Oh, I'm always ready for a good brain teaser. Hit me.
Okay, so gravity. The thing that keeps us all stuck to the planet. What if it's not what we think it is?
Hmm. Going deeper than just things fall down, huh? I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
So we got this research from a guy named Dan Winter, and let me tell you, he's got some pretty radical ideas about gravity, like connecting it to things like golden ratios and fractals.
Golden ratios and fractals. Now, those are some terms I haven't heard in relation to gravity before. So, where do we even begin with this Dan Winter? Who is he exactly?
Well, he's kind of a maverick,
Mm-hmm.
a real outside-the-box thinker. But he's been studying these connections between energy, geometry, and physics for decades. And he's come up with some seriously intriguing theories.
All right, maverick scientist, I'm listening. Give me the rundown. What's the gist of his take on gravity?
Okay, so Winter's basic premise is that gravity isn't just this mysterious force that attracts objects with mass. He believes it's actually a result of this implosive force created by, get this, plasma vortexes.
Plasma vortexes. Okay, I'm picturing swirling tornadoes of energy. But how does that translate to, apples falling from trees?
That's the crazy part. Winter suggests that these vortexes are structured according to, wait for it, the golden ratio. And that somehow this golden ratio geometry creates this inward pull that we experience as gravity.
Hold on, back up a second. The golden ratio, like the one found in seashells and sunflowers, what does that have to do with gravity?
Right, I had the same thought. But Winter argues that this golden ratio isn't just some pretty pattern in nature. He believes it's a fundamental principle that governs how energy flows and structures itself at every level of the universe.
Okay, I'm trying to keep up here. So golden ratio equals specific energy flow. I'm with you so far. But how does that create a force strong enough to, say, hold planets in orbit?
That's where things get a little fuzzy, even for me. Winter uses this term, maximum constructive interference. He's saying that when energy waves align in these specific golden ratio proportions, they amplify each other, creating this intense, implosive force. And that, according to Winter, is the true nature of gravity.
All right, so he's saying the golden ratio is basically the secret sauce to amplifying energy, creating this implosion that pulls everything inwards. It's a bold claim, to say the least.
It definitely is. But Winter's got more than just wild ideas. He's actually done some research to back this up.
Oh, lay it on me. What kind of research are we talking about?
Well, he worked with a couple of other scientists, William Donovan and Martin Jones, to study the structure of the hydrogen atom.
Hydrogen, huh? Why hydrogen?
Well, it's the simplest and most abundant atom in the universe, right? So Winter figured if the golden ratio is truly a universal principle, it should be evident even at that basic level.
Makes sense. So did they find what they were looking for? Evidence of the golden ratio within the hydrogen atom?
They claim they did. Using mathematical equations, they say they found the golden ratio present in the different energy levels and radii of the atom.
The golden ratio embedded in the very structure of matter. Now that would be huge, if true. But I'm guessing not everyone's buying it.
You guessed right. There's a lot of skepticism in the scientific community about Winter's theories. Some say his interpretations are a bit of a stretch. Others just dismiss it as fringe science.
I can imagine. It's not every day someone comes along and tries to rewrite the laws of physics. But even if he's not 100% right, it's definitely thought-provoking.
Exactly. And even if the golden ratio isn't the be-all and end-all of gravity, it does make you wonder, are there these hidden patterns and principles that we're just not seeing yet?
Right. Maybe there's more to the universe than we realize, just waiting to be discovered. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's go back to this idea of the golden ratio and how it actually creates a force. Like, what's the mechanism there?
Well, this is where things get a little tricky. One of Winter's key concepts is something called the phase conjugate fractal.
Phase conjugate fractal. That sounds like a mouthful. Can you break that down for us non-physicists?
I'll try my best. Basically, it's a geometric shape with a very specific kind of symmetry. And according to Winter, when energy flows through this shape, it creates maximum constructive interference.
So it's like a perfectly shaped lens that focuses energy inwards.
Kind of. And he believes that the golden ratio is the key to creating this specific geometry. Like it's the blueprint for this energy concentrating structure.
Okay, I think I'm following. So the golden ratio geometry creates this inward pull, and that's what he's calling gravity. But wouldn't that mean that everything with a golden ratio shape, like a sunflower or a nautilus shell, would have its own mini gravitational field? I'm not feeling any extra pull toward this water bottle, and it's got a pretty nice spiral going on.
That's a good point. And it's one of the things that critics of Winter's theory bring up. But Winter would probably argue that while the golden ratio is present in those natural forms, they don't necessarily create a significant gravitational effect because they're not operating at the same energy level as, say, a plasma vortex in the heart of a star.
Ah, I see. So it's a matter of scale and intensity. Like the golden ratio principle applies everywhere, but it takes a lot of energy flowing through the right kind of structure to create a noticeable gravitational force.
Exactly. Winter believes that the more perfectly a structure embodies the golden ratio,
Yeah.
and the higher the energy flowing through it, the stronger the implosive force, and therefore the stronger the gravitational effect.
Okay, so these cosmic plasma vortexes, with their golden ratio geometry and immense energy, they're the heavy hitters of the gravitational world, so to speak.
Right, they're like the grand orchestrators of gravity, influencing everything on smaller and smaller scales, all the way down to us here on Earth.
That's pretty wild. But if we don't directly experience these giant vortexes, how does their influence trickle down to our everyday reality?
Well, Winter would say that it's all about fractals.
Fractals. Okay, now we're really going down the rabbit hole. Remind me what those are again.
Sure. A fractal is basically a geometric shape that exhibits self-similarity.
Self-similarity. You mean like looking in a mirror and seeing yourself reflected back, but with shapes instead of a person?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It means that the same basic pattern repeats itself at different scales. So if you zoom in on a fractal, you'll see the same shapes and patterns repeated over and over again, no matter how close you get.
Ah, okay, like a snowflake. You see those six-pointed star shapes, and then you zoom in, and each little arm of the star is made up of the same six-pointed shapes, and so on.
Exactly. Snowflakes are a classic example. But you see fractals everywhere in nature. Trees, ghost lines, lightning bolts, even the branching patterns of our blood vessels.
So is Winter saying that these fractal patterns are somehow connected to the golden ratio, like one creates the other?
That's exactly what he's saying. He believes that the golden ratio is the driving force behind the creation of these repeating fractal patterns.
Okay, but how? What's the actual link between the golden ratio and the formation of fractals?
This is where it gets a little heady, but it involves something called phase conjugation.
Phase conjugation. Is that anything like what we were talking about with the constructive interference?
It's related. It has to do with the way waves interfere with each other. Remember when we talked about dropping pebbles in a pond and how the ripples interact?
Yeah, the peaks and valleys of the waves either amplifying each other or canceling each other out.
Right. Well, Winter believes that when waves interfere according to the golden ratio proportions, they create this very specific interference pattern that leads to the formation of fractals.
So the golden ratio guides the way these waves interact, ultimately shaping the structure of matter into these repeating fractal patterns. That's pretty wild.
It is. And he ties this back to gravity by saying that these cosmic plasma vortexes, the ones driving gravity, are themselves giant energy-filled fractals.
So the fractal shape of these vortexes is like a cosmic funnel, channeling energy inward and creating gravity. My head's starting to spin a little.
Mine too. And we've only just scratched the surface of Dan Winter's theories.
Well, I'm definitely hooked. What else does he have to say about all this? Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've all had a chance to catch your breath, because we're about to dive even deeper into the mind-blowing world of Dan Winter and his theories.
Yeah, my brain's still buzzing from that last segment, but I'm ready for more. Especially curious about how Winter connects these ideas of golden ratios and fractals to things like life force and consciousness. It sounds a little, well, out there, even for him.
It definitely pushes the boundaries of conventional science, that's for sure. But remember, Winter's whole approach is about challenging the mainstream materialistic view of the universe. He's saying we need to look beyond just the physical stuff and consider the role of energy and information in shaping reality.
Right. He sees the universe as this interconnected web of energy, guided by these underlying patterns. So how does that tie into the idea of a life force? Are we talking like some mystical energy field or?
Not necessarily mystical, but certainly beyond what traditional physics can currently explain. Winter believes that the same implosive force that creates gravity also drives the organization and complexity of living systems.
Okay, hold on. He's saying gravity isn't just about things falling down. It's also about how life itself comes together. That's a pretty big leap.
It is, isn't it? He argues that the golden ratio and fractals play a crucial role in creating the conditions for life to emerge and thrive. He points to the prevalence of these patterns in nature, the spirals of seashells, the branching of trees, even the structure of DNA as evidence that these principles are fundamental to the organization of living systems.
I can see the connection to those natural forms, but how does that translate to something like a life force? Is he saying that objects with a strong golden ratio structure have more of this life energy?
In a sense, yes. Winter believes that the more perfectly a structure embodies the golden ratio, the more effectively it can draw in and channel energy. And he sees this ability to attract and harness energy as a key characteristic of living systems. He equates it to having a stronger life force.
So a perfectly formed spiral seashell is basically buzzing with life energy because it's so aligned with this golden ratio. That's pretty wild. What about us humans? Where do we fit into this whole life force equation?
Well, Winter suggests that our bodies are essentially complex bioelectric systems that function based on these same principles of energy flow and fractal organization. He believes that the more coherent and balanced our energy fields are, the more vital and alive we feel.
So it's not just about our physical bodies, but also about the energy flowing through us. Is that where the connection to consciousness comes in?
Exactly. Winter argues that consciousness itself is an emergent property of this implosive, fractal organization of energy. He suggests that the human brain, with its intricate network of neurons and synapses, functions as a kind of biological antenna, capable of receiving and transmitting information through these subtle energy fields that permeate the universe.
Wait, he's saying our brains are like cosmic Wi-Fi routers picking up signals from this universal energy field. Are we talking telepathy here?
Well, it's not quite as simple as that, but you're getting the basic idea. Winter believes that the more coherent and balanced our brainwave patterns are, the more effectively we can tap into this field of information and experience higher states of consciousness.
Okay, so how do we actually achieve this greater coherence and balance in our energy fields? Is this where meditation and mindfulness come in?
Those practices can certainly help. Winter emphasizes the importance of creating environments that support coherent energy flow, both within our bodies and in our surroundings. He talks about the benefits of being in nature, listening to certain kinds of music, and even using specific technologies that generate beneficial frequencies.
So it's about aligning ourselves with these natural principles of harmony and balance, not just in our minds, but also in our physical environment. It's like feng shui for the soul.
That's a good analogy. Winter's work really emphasizes this interconnectedness of everything, suggesting that our internal state and our external environment are constantly influencing each other.
This is all pretty mind-blowing stuff. But I'm wondering if Winter's theories are correct, what are the practical implications? Like, what could we actually do with this knowledge?
That's the exciting part. Winter believes that understanding these principles could revolutionize everything from healing and agriculture to energy production and even space travel.
Whoa, slow down. I need a little more detail on each of those. Let's start with healing. How could Winter's theories be applied to medicine?
He proposes that many illnesses are essentially a result of disruptions in our bioelectric energy fields. He suggests that by using technologies that generate specific frequencies and patterns, we could help restore coherence and balance to these energy systems, promoting healing and well-being.
So it's like retuning a musical instrument that's out of whack.
Exactly. And this thinking isn't entirely new. There's already growing interest in therapies that utilize pulsed electromagnetic fields, light therapy, and sound healing techniques, all aiming to restore balance and harmony to our bioelectric systems.
It sounds a little futuristic, but also kind of intuitive. I mean, we're all made of energy, right? So it makes sense that manipulating those energy fields could have a powerful impact on our health.
Right. And while much of this research is still in its early stages, there's a growing body of evidence suggesting that these approaches can have significant benefits for a wide range of conditions.
Okay, so we've got agriculture, architecture, healing, all pretty groundbreaking stuff. But what about the more sci-fi applications Winter talks about, like advanced propulsion systems and tapping into zero-point energy? Are we talking about warp drives and free energy anytime soon?
Well, let's just say those are a bit further out on the horizon. But the underlying principles are the same. Understanding and harnessing the implosive force of nature.
Right, that idea that golden ratio structures can create these powerful vortexes that draw energy inwards. But how do we actually translate that into something like a spaceship engine?
Winter suggests that by creating devices that mimic the fractal implosive geometry of these cosmic vortexes, we could potentially manipulate gravity itself.
Hold on, manipulate gravity, you mean like anti-gravity, flying cars. Is that what we're talking about here?
It's certainly within the realm of possibility, at least theoretically. Winter believes that if we can understand how gravity is generated at a fundamental level, we could learn to control it, potentially leading to new forms of propulsion that don't rely on traditional rocket technology.
Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing. But let's be real, that's probably a long way off, right? I mean, we're still struggling to get self-driving cars to work properly.
True, but the point is, Winter's theories open up a whole new way of thinking about these possibilities. And even if we never achieve warp speed or anti-gravity, the research in these areas could lead to unexpected spin-offs and technological advancements.
I like that optimistic outlook. So last but not least, let's talk about consciousness. We touched on Winter's idea that our brains are like antennas picking up signals from this universal energy field. But what are the practical implications of that?
Winter suggests that by understanding the principles of coherence and resonance, we could potentially enhance our cognitive abilities, access deeper states of awareness, and even connect with each other on a more profound level.
So, like telepathy, group consciousness. Are we going full X-Men here?
Maybe not that dramatic, but Winter does believe that our understanding of consciousness is still very limited, and that exploring these unconventional ideas could lead to breakthroughs in how we perceive and interact with the world.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities, even if some of them sound a bit out there. But it's also a little daunting. If all of this is true, it means we're standing on the edge of a whole new understanding of reality itself.
It's both exhilarating and humbling, isn't it? And it highlights the importance of approaching these ideas with both curiosity and critical thinking.
Right. We need to be open to new possibilities, but also discerning, not just blindly accepting everything we hear. It's about finding that balance between wonder and skepticism.
Exactly. And ultimately, it's about continuing to explore, to ask questions, to challenge the boundaries of what we think we know.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to shift gears and explore one of the most intriguing aspects of Winter's work, the potential applications of his theories, particularly in the realms of healing, propulsion, and consciousness. Stay with us, folks. We're about to get even deeper into the deep dive.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Ready to see if we can actually apply some of this wild stuff we've been talking about?
Oh, yeah. Sign me up. Last time, we left off talking about all the potential implications of Dan Winter's theories. Things like revolutionizing agriculture, healing, even space travel.
Right, and remember, all those possibilities stem from this one core idea: understanding and harnessing the implosive force of nature. The force that Winter believes is driven by the golden ratio and those fractal patterns we were talking about.
Okay, I'm still trying to wrap my head around all that. But I'm especially curious about the practical applications. Like, how would this actually work in, say, agriculture?
Well, think about it this way. Current agricultural practices are often focused on uniformity, on creating these neat rows of crops, optimizing for efficiency and yield. But what if we took a different approach?
An approach that was more in tune with nature's own design.
Exactly. Instead of imposing our own rigid structures, what if we mimic the patterns and principles we see in the natural world?
So instead of those straight rows of corn, you'd have fields that are laid out in spirals or branching patterns.
Something like that, yeah. Winter suggests that by aligning our agricultural practices with these natural principles, we could create more fertile soil, healthier plants, and potentially even increase crop yields. It's about working with nature, rather than trying to force it to conform to our ideas of order.
I like that. It makes intuitive sense, Nature's had billions of years to perfect these designs, so why not learn from the best?
Right. And this principle can extend beyond agriculture. Winter believes we can apply this understanding to architecture, urban planning, even the design of our homes and workspaces to create environments that are more harmonious and life-supporting.
So it's about more than just aesthetics. It's about tapping into these deeper principles of energy flow and organization to create spaces that actually enhance our well-being.
Exactly. And it gets even more fascinating when you think about the implications for healing.
Oh yeah, we were getting into that last time. Something about using frequencies and energy fields to promote healing. Fill me in again.
Well, think about it this way. Winter sees the body as a complex bioelectric system. And he believes that many illnesses are essentially a result of disruptions in these energy fields.
So it's like a car that's not running smoothly because the electrical system is messed up.
Kind of. And just like a mechanic can use tools to diagnose and repair electrical problems in a car, Winter believes we can use specific frequencies and electromagnetic fields to help restore balance and harmony to our own bioelectric systems.
I'm picturing, like, energy acupuncture or something. Is that even a real thing?
Well, it's still an emerging field, but there's a growing body of research looking into things like pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, light therapy, and sound healing.
So not quite lasers shooting out of our fingertips yet, but maybe someday.
Who knows what the future holds? But the point is, this is a whole new way of thinking about healing. It's about working with the body's own energy systems to promote well-being, rather than just treating symptoms with drugs or surgery.
It's definitely a radical shift in perspective. And it makes you wonder, if we can manipulate these energy fields to heal, what else can we do?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And this is where things get really sci-fi. Because Winter believes that if we can truly understand these principles of implosion and energy flow, we could potentially achieve things like advanced propulsion systems and even tap into that zero-point energy we were talking about earlier.
Okay, now we're talking warp drives and free energy. I knew we'd get here eventually.
Yeah.
But is that even remotely realistic?
Well, it's definitely on the fringe of scientific thought, and there's still a lot we don't know. But think about it. If Winter's right about gravity being a result of this implosive force created by these golden ratio-structured vortexes, then maybe, just maybe, we could learn to create our own mini vortexes.
And harness that energy for propulsion. Like, create a spaceship that literally bends space-time to travel faster than light.
It sounds crazy, I know. But remember, what seems impossible today might become commonplace tomorrow. We just need to keep exploring these possibilities and see where they lead.
Okay, I'm game. But even if we set aside the warp drives for now, what about those more down-to-earth applications of this energy? Like, how could we actually tap into this zero-point energy?
Well, according to Winder, it all comes back to understanding the fractal nature of reality. He believes that if we can create devices that mimic the geometry and energy flow of these cosmic vortexes, we could potentially tap into this vast reservoir of energy that's theoretically present everywhere in the universe.
So it's about creating these mini black holes that suck in energy from the vacuum of space.
Not exactly black holes, but you're getting the idea. It's about finding ways to resonate with this underlying energy field and draw it into our own systems.
Sounds pretty ambitious. And probably a long way off, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
But even if we never achieve those sci-fi scenarios, the research and experimentation in these areas could lead to unexpected breakthroughs and innovations. Just like the pursuit of alchemy in the Middle Ages laid the groundwork for modern chemistry, who knows what incredible discoveries await us as we explore these unconventional ideas.
I like that. It's a reminder that even if some of Winter's specific claims don't hold up, the act of questioning, exploring, and pushing the boundaries of knowledge is never a waste of time.
Exactly. And when it comes to understanding the universe and our place within it, I think a healthy dose of curiosity and wonder is always a good thing.
Well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the fascinating and sometimes bewildering world of Dan Winter and his theories.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the fundamental nature of gravity to the interconnectedness of life and consciousness, and even the possibility of tapping into limitless energy and achieving interstellar travel.
It's been a wild ride, to say the least. But hopefully it's left you with more questions than answers, a sense of awe at the mysteries of the universe, and maybe even a spark of inspiration to explore these ideas further on your own.
Because ultimately, the journey of discovery is just as important as the destination, so keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep that spark of curiosity burning bright.
And who knows, maybe someday, we'll be cruising through the cosmos in our golden ratio-powered spaceships, powered by the infinite energy of the universe. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive, and we'll see you next time for another mind-expanding adventure.